There were so many things that I had to do, so I almost had to. Being that vessel, I just wasn't ready for that.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur. Today, we have Teresa Atchison. Y'all don't know who we get ready to talk to here. But what I can tell you is that she is a serial entrepreneur. She's a woman that has so many gifts, and she has been able to be successful in all of the businesses that she's created. I am so grateful to have the opportunity to figure out how I too can have a full-time job and be Jamaican and have 20 jobs. Hey, Teresa.
Tanya, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So,
Maybe I need to turn on my Jamaican accent.
No.
Okay.
But
okay.
if you must.
Okay.
If you must. So, my first question is I always ask everybody what their birthday is.
Okay. My birthday is April 21st. So what does that say about me?
Well, it says you're a Taurus. Mm-hmm. You could be a little stubborn.
Just a little bit.
A little bit?
Mm-hmm.
You're not real stubborn.
No, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Okay. That's all I know about Taurus.
Oh, okay.
But I heard it really starts on April 20th, not April 21st.
I know. I used to be the first day of Taurus until they changed it. So now April 20th is the first day of Taurus.
That's unfortunate.
So I'm not on the cusp anymore.
You still on the first week is the cusp. Oh. So that means you got a little
competition. I got some competition.
That's an Aries? What's before you?
Yeah, I think it's Aries.
So you got
Pisces or Aries? Pisces in June.
So that's that's April. Yeah, you got Aries too.
Yeah.
That's great. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank you again for coming.
Sure.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity. What I really, really want to know is, who is Teresa?
Okay. Growing up, my mom, I was always that kid that stayed home all the time. I wanted to be under my mom all the time. And I have a sister, and my sister was the one that was outside all the time. But I stayed under my mom all the time. And as time went on, my mother eventually became sick when I was 17. So for 2 years, my mother struggled with pancreatic cancer. So she passed away when I was 19. So during the 17 to 19 year phase of my life, my sister had a child, and my mother was sick, so I had to pay the bills. There were so many things that I had to do, so I almost had to grow up in an instant, just like that. So with my mom passing away when I was 19, I didn't have time to try to figure things out. It was just, I just had to be. And one of the things that I felt at that time of my life was anger. And I was angry because my mom wasn't there. There were different triggers that used to get me even more angry, like in November, they would start to play Christmas music a little bit earlier. So I'm like, oh, it's starting, because my mom, I could always count on the Christmas gifts and that holiday spirit and all that. So I had to kind of create that myself, but it took a long time for me to create that. So I started out really angry. And as time went on, I eventually got married a couple times. Mm-hmm. I had 2 children, and I eventually started to go to this church. And in going to that church, I was able to find some peace within myself. So the anger started to subside, and I realized that I have a gift of edification, so I can make people feel better about themselves. So the church that I was at, they wanted me to kind of talk to other people about the struggles that they have when it came to their kids because of experiences that I've had with my own children. So even to this day, I'm a Pilates instructor now. Even to this day, I pour into, I'm a lead instructor, so I pour into the other instructors. So that's who I've kind of become, somebody that kind of is in the service field. I don't know if that's the right word to use. But I find pleasure in serving other people. So that's where I am today. And it makes me feel good. I see people come into the studio and they can't even get on the reformer by themselves, or they can't get off the floor by themselves. And those little wins, just being able to get off the floor or being able to put your feet into the straps by yourself, those little wins, they kind of fill me up inside. So that service is who I am today, that person that's doing that service just for those little wins.
I receive it. The first thing I want to start with is, so you said at 19, you essentially had to just really start to take over and make sure everybody in the family was getting what they needed. So at 19, you got your first job, or like, how did you go about, like, I've got to do something to make things happen so that we can make ends meet?
Okay. So I was always gifted. Like, I had a photographic memory. Like, now my memory is, as you get older, your memory starts to become fog.
Oh, okay. That's your story. I got you.
But when my mother was sick, I was before my mom got sick, I was always able to retain information. And as time went on, I was always gifted in some area. So I was like the neighborhood hairdresser. So I started out doing my hair, doing my mom's hair, doing my sister's hair, people in my family. So I eventually went to school to become a hairdresser.
Okay.
So I went to Scanners International Beauty Academy, and I finished there, and I stayed as a cosmetology instructor. So they asked me if I would stay, and I stayed for a certain amount of time.
You just go to school.
I went to school.
You get the license, and now you an instructor. You weren't going to be an instructor, were you?
No,
Oh,
I was going so that I would have my license to be able to work in a salon and do hair. Now, my aunt had her own salon, so I was starting out shampooing in her salon and stuff like that. So the license helped, but that wasn't something that I stuck with forever. But that was my way out of being by myself and being able to take care of myself and pay the bills and stuff like that. So I became a hairdresser. Now, I still had my federal government job. So I started in the federal government when I was 17 in the stay in school program. You know how they'll have you
So
come.
was the Mayor Berry? Was it?
Yes.
The Mayor Berry program.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I was in that program. Thank God for him.
Yes.
I was in that program, so I was able to learn how to deal with people. I worked in an elementary school, so we worked with the young kids that were coming to the elementary school for camp. So I got to learn how to deal with children and stuff like that. So it was a really good experience. So that's how I got started. And I've always stayed with my job. So I've been with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I was with them from the age of 19 until I was 56. So I kind of stayed with the same. Oh yes, I had my insurance, dental plan. I had all of that, and I had my retirement. I was putting into my retirement, stuff like that. So it just started out with me going into that program with Marion Barry, sticking with the government and moving myself around a little bit. I ended up at the Securities and Exchange Commission. But I always, when I was 26, I was teaching at the Beauty Academy.
Okay.
So at a young age. And that was interesting because I was working during the daytime. So I was teaching at night. So most of the people that would come at night were older people. Because the younger people can go to school in the daytime. So most people that were coming in the evening, they were older than me. So it was a challenge getting them to respect me as the instructor. You know what I mean? So that's how I started out doing that. So I was always working, but when I got off work, I would go to the school and do my lesson plans and all that stuff and teach. So that's how I started out. I was doing hair.
So you become an instructor. Why did you feel you had to have two jobs? Like, why did you feel like, okay, I got this good government job? Why?
See that? Because that's what it was. That was my insurance. That was the way I was going to make sure I paid my bills and all of that. But I wanted to do hair.
Got it.
But I was able to sustain my lifestyle by keeping that government job.
So when you became a beauty hair instructor and you teaching people, how long did you do that for?
I did that for about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was always working in a salon also. So I used to work like 3 days a week and 1 day on the weekend at a salon after I stopped working as an instructor. So I was working in a salon for a while.
Okay.
So I was working in a salon. I was doing nails. Whatever it took. I was doing facials, whatever it took. I sold Avon for like 15 minutes. But I did that. So whatever came, and then Warm Spirit came around. That's a company that sells products that are created for women to, pamper themselves and take care of themselves. So I became a Warm Spirit consultant. So I started talking to women about taking care of their bodies and taking care of their skin and stuff like that. So that was kind of like right up my alley. So all of it kind of
worked together.
Yeah. So all of that kind of, it was like a streamline to me getting there. So when I did that, again, I was working at my government job. Now, I wasn't doing hair anymore when I started to work selling the Warm Spirit. I wasn't doing hair anymore. And we didn't talk about that. So 7 years is the maximum number that I'll do for any career outside of my government job. So after 7 years, there was something else that I needed to be doing.
Were you bored? Did you get bored or you just decided?
No, it's like every 7 years. I need to keep learning. So I met this young lady at one of these parties, and she was like, "Oh, this is something that I think you'll enjoy." So I ended up going to one of the parties, and I was like, I can do that. Like, I've learned about hair and makeup and skin care and all that. So that was just right up my alley. So I was doing that. And I actually hooked up with this other young lady. She was selling clothes and I was doing makeup. So we started to have fashion shows around the DMV area. We were having fashion shows and I would talk to them about different makeup and stuff like that. And I was selling, so my thing was clean makeup. So I was selling disposable products.
Okay.
So if you had lipsticks and stuff like that, I was selling the lipstick brushes or the eyeshadow applicator brushes and stuff like that you can just throw in the trash.
Gotcha.
So those were the things that I was selling. I was talking to them about makeup and that sort of thing, but I was selling those disposable products so that people can keep their makeup clean. So that's what I did. I didn't make much money doing that. My counterpart that was selling the clothes, a lot of the parties were people that she had put, those were friends of hers. But we had a lot of like fashion shows and stuff like that. And she made a lot more money than I did because, like I said, I was just selling the products. So we did that for a while. That wasn't for 7 years, though. We did that for a while. She was just a friend, a parent of one of my daughter's friends. So I ended up meeting her, and then we hooked up. I was selling Warm Spirit at the time, then I had stopped. But after that, my daughter, when she turned 13, like we used to do everything together. When she turned 13, I was like, "You want to go to the mall?" And she was like, "You can drop me off." And I'm like, "Oh." So I was like, "You don't need me anymore." So I had to figure out something else to do with myself. So at that point, I knew a guy that was a photographer, and he did weddings. So I had talked to him about possibly doing makeup for his company. And that was interesting because his wife then become his ex-wife. She was his makeup artist. So I apprenticed under her. Now, I have the background and the license and all that to do it, but I needed somebody to kind of show me. So
fundamentals, right?
Yep. So she took me through that whole process, and then I became a makeup artist, and I was doing weddings, and I was doing about 40 weddings a year. I got to the point where I was hiring other makeup artists to go with me to the wedding, so they would go and do the bridesmaids and stuff like that, and then I would come to do the bride. So I had about 5 makeup artists that worked with me. I also had a makeup organization where I had about 162 makeup artists all over the United States that were a part of my makeup group. So I've done a whole, just things just come up. And then it's like, oh, I can do that.
So how did you end up getting 192 makeup artists all across the United States?
162. Well,
162.
there was a young lady that started the makeup organization, and she wasn't really doing much with it.
Okay.
And I was like, and we worked together at my federal government job. And I told her, like, let me take it over. I'll take it over, and I'll get people to join, and I'll teach people things, and that sort of stuff. So I took it over, and that was when Meetup.com had first started. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I guess.
Okay. So Meetup.com.
Yes.
So I actually have a picture at home of the young lady that interviewed me from Meetup.com, because my makeup group was one of the groups that they focused when they were selling their business.
Got it.
So I would have different meetups, and I worked with different Starbucks. And I would, because Starbucks will allow you to come in, as long as you're buying coffee, you can come in and have different meetings and stuff like that. So we would meet at different Starbucks in Virginia, Maryland, and that sort of thing, and we would have the makeup artists come in. Now, I would get in contact with all these makeup companies, Sephora, NARS, and at the time, there was this new makeup company called Nixie. So I contacted Nixie, and I told them that I had all these makeup artists, and we were looking to try out some of their products and stuff like that, and I wanted to know if they could provide us with any gratuitous products. And they did, and we used those at our meetup and stuff like that, and then the makeup artists started to use their product and all that, so it was like a marriage made in heaven. So that's why the Meetup company did that interview with me, because I was bringing them business through
Gotcha.
the website that you set up on their company's website. So each person can set up a specific group. So this was a metropolitan makeup artist, and so I did that.
You set up. Why did you give that up? This seems like such a good gig.
Well,
40 weddings a year.
Right, exactly. But when you look at it, they were all over the place. And at that time, we didn't have like Zoom and all that. Or I didn't know about Zoom. But I would have these events, and the events that I would have was to help them to get more experience doing makeup. Like, there are instances where, like, you show up to do a wedding and say, oh, I left my brushes. You still have to make it work. So I would have sessions where they would come in and I would say, okay, we're not using any brushes today, and you can only use, and we would have all the colors of foundation. You can only use foundation, you have to do a full face. So we would do that, and then we would have, I worked at the Securities and Exchange Commission, which was down at Union Station, and they had a bookstore down there. So I would go in there. It was an international bookstore, so I would go there and buy British magazines in relation to makeup and stuff like that. So we would try to recreate those makeup looks and stuff like that. So whatever I could do to try to get them to come outside of the box was what I was trying to do with the makeup organization. So when I was having those events, people were coming, and then it was like they're kind of not coming. And I was putting a lot of money, time, and effort because it wasn't free to do any of this stuff. But it wasn't if I would have stuck in there, I think it would have gone farther. But it just wasn't doing what I wanted to be doing at the time that I needed to do it. So I just passed it on to another young lady. But when I passed it on, it was 162 makeup artists that I passed on to her.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. You seem like somewhere you're destined to be a teacher.
I think I think I'm good at sharing experiences and things that I know with people. Somebody had asked me before, like, you should be a car salesman. Like, you can sell anything, and I was like, I would never do that. And he said, here's a pencil. Now sell me this pencil. And I was like, oh, and it just took me 2 seconds. And I said, you know what? I said, ink pens will run out on, they will run out on you. You can't do as much as you can do with the pencil, with the ink pen as you can do with the pencil, because the pencil will allow you to make a mistake and redo that, and nobody will ever know. So instead of carrying an ink pen in your pocket, you should always carry a pencil. And
that's why I carry pencils.
And I'm like, I can sell things. I can sell stuff. It's like I can sell stuff, but I never looked at it as teaching. I just saw it as I can sell things, if you will.
Well, so from teaching perspective, if you make sense to a person,
yes,
and they can emotionally relate, they're going to buy.
And if you have a conversation with somebody, it is always a need.
Yeah.
If you can find out what their need is, if they have a family of 4, this caravan that I have, you know what I mean? So if you know what the need is, then you can meet that need somehow. But you just have to be able to verbalize it to that person and get them to see it how you see it. They already need it, but they didn't really know that they needed it. So I just have to get them to understand, like, you really need this. And then use, my own personal experiences to get people to really understand and feel.
But you're not a salesman.
The need and feel. Yep.
I understand. I'm with you. Continue to tell me you're not. I'll go
okay. But I never thought of myself as that. It's just, I don't know, things just... I'm like, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do this. And I told my daughter when she told me she was going to go, I can drop her off at the mall and she'll meet her friends and then I can go and then I can come back and pick her up. It's like my heart just sank.
Right.
And I told her, I'm going to be a makeup artist now. I wasn't doing hair anymore.
Right.
I'm going to be a makeup artist. And she was like, no, you're not. Mm-hmm. And that's when I went through that whole makeup artist process. I was a makeup artist for 8 years.
Okay.
And then I stopped doing that. And then I had a fall. I walked over a water meter cover that wasn't secured to the ground. So as I walked over the water meter cover, it was raining outside, I remember distinctly, and I had flip-flops on. And so I was going to my cousin's house, so I was coming out of the car, coming across the street, and I just disappeared because my cousin was right there. He was like, I didn't know what happened. I disappeared because my leg went into the ground. I fell down, and my leg went into the ground, hyperextended my big toe, split my toe open, so I ended up having to go to the hospital and everything. So that was a big ordeal. I was in a boot 3 times. I was getting cortisone shots between my big and second toe. And they put bleach in the cortisone shot. So I would walk around with white lines coming up my legs. The bleach will help the cortisone to last a little longer. So I hated that, and the shots between my toes. So the doctors were telling me, you got to buy clogs and you're never going to be able to wear heels again. At my federal government job, I wore suits every day, dresses, high heels, all of that. So I walked over the water meter cover, messed up my foot. The doctor was like, you're never going to be able to wear heels again. And then I started to believe that, because when I would leave work, I worked at Union Station. By the time I would catch the train, get to my car, and go to pick up my son, my foot would be swollen.
Wow.
So I dealt with that for a while. And then it was around Christmas time, and I said, you know what? I'm going to buy myself a reformer, a Pilates reformer.
So that just popped in your head.
It just came up. And I said, you know what? I'm going to use this, and I'll figure it out, you know? And so I got something in the mail. Club Pilates is opening up a location in Crofton. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And that way I'll learn how to use the reformer. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, I'll join, but I was only going to stay for like 2 months.
That's all.
Yep. And that way I can learn everything I needed to learn in 2 months. And it's expensive, right? So I said, I'll go there. And then so they have a 90-day policy. They want you to stay for 3 months because they want you to see the difference in your body. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. So I stayed for the 3 months, and the owner was like, you will be a great instructor. And I was like, you know, because a friend of mine, we had started going to this this yoga teacher training thing just to see what it was about. Mm-hmm. And I have vertigo, so that was, I mean, every time the yoga class was over, my brain was all over the place. I was nauseous and all that, so I knew that I couldn't do that. Where I worked, we had a gym at my job. So I've always worked out. Mm-hmm. My mom passed away early, so I've always worked out. I've always watched what I put in my body and that sort of thing. They told me, you know, I would never wear heels, and they told me that I should wear the clogs. So I was wearing these clogs, right? And the clogs are like clunk, clunk, clunk. I hated wearing the clogs. And wearing clogs with a dress. Oh my God. So I was wearing the clogs, and I learned the exercises. Well, a lot of the exercises. I knew some of the exercises from when I used to go to the gym at my job, because at lunchtime I would always go work out, and they had instructors to come in. So the reformer fixed my foot. I could wear heels. I could dance all night in heels when the doctors told me I would never be able to do that. And that reformer was what repaired my foot. So I did a little bit more research, and now the reformer started out as springs on a hospital bed. It was during the wartime, and Joseph Pilates was trying to help to get the people that were wounded from the war back out there to fight. So he would rehabilitate them with the springs. So now today we have a reformer, which is a portable hospital bed with springs on it. And
really?
So yes. So it's meant for rehabilitation, but we use it to work out. So once it fixed my foot, and I know so many people that have so many ailments, all these things going on and stuff like that, frozen shoulder from carrying your purse for a long time, all these different things. So I wanted to share that with other people. So I ended up, here I go back to ground one. So I started their teacher training program. Now, the teacher training program was $5,000 just to get the certification. So that's just getting you started. So I went through that program, and I became a Pilates instructor. And that was about 5.5 years ago. So not only am I doing Pilates when I can, I teach Pilates. And like I said before, those little teeny wins that people get, and I can see like a light bulb will go off when somebody can do something that they've been trying to do for a while. And those little wins are why I'm still teaching Pilates.
You went from a makeup artist, you build out 162, mm-hmm. right? And after you build that out, you say, hey, I want to do this in yours. And so you hand it off to someone else. Then you have this freak accident, mm-hmm. and you hurt your foot. And you spent, like, how long was it before something just popped in your head and said, you know, I need to get a reformer? And so you just get this reformer. Yeah, because when I had the fall, you know, when you're doing these weddings, you're standing up for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't stand up for a long time anymore.
So that was something that I had to give that up. And I can't sit down and do the makeup because I need to be able to move around. I need to be able to have my lighting and all that stuff around me so that I can see. So it just wasn't practical for me to continue to do that. So the reformer thing, again, a fluke. It just came up and I just went with it.
Right.
And it was like, whoa, okay, now I'm a lead instructor. Like, so, the instructors come out of teacher training and then they come to me. So it's like, okay, here I go again. But again, those little wins, that's why I do what I do. So I've been teaching for 5.5 years, almost 6 years.
Really? Or have you really been teaching since 1920?
No, I've been teaching Pilates.
Okay.
So, I retired from my federal government job this year, the day before my 57th birthday.
Okay.
So I was 56 when I retired from the government. So now I'm working part-time at a studio. So I work almost every day.
Early retirement.
Oh, yeah. I retired from my job this year.
Did you lose any benefits because of that?
No, I
Because you
did.
came in before you've been
Yeah.
since you were 2.
Yes.
Got it.
But
Yeah. Okay.
no, not since I was 2, but I started working like right when they changed the retirement from CSRS to FERS. So I had the option to stay with CSRS or move over to FERS. I didn't know the difference in the two, so I just went with the newer one.
Okay.
My eligibility was October 20th of last year. So I could actually have retired last year when I was 56 and a half.
Got it.
Yeah, so
Got it.
well, my paperwork was in for me to go October 20th because I was like, this is my day, I'm going to be out of here. And they were talking about a government shutdown. So I said, well, let me at least stay until they figure out what they're going to do. And so I said, I'll stay until January. And then January came and they're still talking about another shutdown. So I said, well, I'm not going to work after when I'm 57. So my last day of work was April the 20th.
First day of Taurus now.
Before. Yep, the first day of Taurus now was the day that I left my job. And I haven't looked back ever since. And I love what I'm doing now. I have time to spend time with my grandkids. Like I said, I have 3 grandkids, and 2 of them pretty much live with me.
Okay.
So I'm in their lives, and I'm not working my federal government job and going to all these other things that I was doing outside of that. So the time that I was not, now that I think back, that I was not able to give to my children because I was on the grind all the time, I've been able to give that to my grandkids.
So a person who is working, they have a job that they love, but they have some other things that they want to do. And it seems like you made time, but you made some sacrifices, and you feel like you made those sacrifices by not giving the kids the time that they needed, correct?
Right. Some of the time, but I always made sure it was just a couple days a week and then on the weekends.
Okay.
Yeah. So my daughter would go to her dad's house every other weekend. So I could kind of work it where it was just a couple days a week.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. You are a very spiritual person. Mm-hmm. Tell me how that evolved in your life.
I started out going to church. This young lady had introduced me to Zion Church. And I was going to Zion, and Zion is meant for people that are like, we call it coming off the street, like people that have never been to a church before, or, people that they left the club last night and they're going to church the next day. So you didn't have to like dress up or anything. So it's like, come as you are. The pastor was down to earth and all that stuff. So I was going to church there, and then I started going to church after I left Zion. I was going to First Baptist Church of Glenarden. Mm-hmm. So I was going to both those churches. And I was, at one point when we were at the old location, I was on hospitality. So I would greet people at the door and stuff like that. And as time went on, I started to take classes on, how you prepare a sermon and I started the Divine Discipleship of Sisters at First Baptist Church of Glenarden. So I was getting closer and closer to God. And then I was on leadership at Zion. So they opened their second location, which was at Woodbridge High School. And we were, my children and I were going down there every weekend because I was overseeing that project down there to get Woodbridge High School to turn their auditorium into a sanctuary every weekend. So that meant we had trailers that had all the equipment in there. The trailers were kind of built around the equipment. So you had to have like a plan to get all the equipment out and then all the equipment back in to the trailer. And we had to go down there every Sunday morning. So we were getting up at the crack of dawn because it took me about maybe like an hour and 5 or an hour and 10 minutes to get there. And I was taking my children with me down there.
They were excited, I'm sure.
No. They started out, excited. We would go down there, and my daughter was, she was in the toddler room, and my son was doing the projection for the kids, what comes on the screen and all that. And then it got to the point where they were like, we don't want to come down here. We just want to go to church. And I was like, no, we have to do this. And I'm overseeing this and overseeing that. And as time went on, I had an experience that wasn't too pleasant. So I ended up leaving there because we were doing a lot. We were feeding the people that came in to the church. We had the children's church. We had the police officers outside, so I had to pay the police officers. There was a whole lot that I was doing. So I was in charge of the inside, which is the entire sanctuary. When we would get when people would tithe and stuff like that, and we'd do the offerings and all that. So I was in charge of all this stuff. So something happened down there, and then I ended up coming back up to Zion. And one of the reasons was because my kids were like, we don't want to do this. And, every weekend they were upset. So I ended up coming back up to Zion. But then as time went on, I kind of understood that, like God is in me. And although I loved the interaction at the church, I loved the fellowship and stuff like that, it's because of me that a lot of people in my family are actually going to that church. And I loved all of that. But I grew to understand that God is within me. And I can use that to get people closer to God. So I may be the only Jesus that they may ever see in their life. So that gift of edification, I have been, at one point I was using that. And I was like, God, please send people into my life that I can tell my testimony to and this and that. God, please use me. And then once these things started to come to fruition, I was like, wait a minute, hold up. Like, I'm not ready for all that. Like, people were telling me their personal, these sacrifices and things that were happening in their lives. And I was taking it on. So I wanted to be the vessel. Exactly. And that kind of changed how so I was like, woo. So I couldn't hear all of these things that people were sharing with me and keep it moving, if you will. I was taking on
you were internalizing
so I was, I was crying and I was getting depressed. And so over time, I just realized that wasn't something, even though I do believe I have a calling on my life.
You do.
That's just being that vessel. I just wasn't ready for that.
I receive it. So, but you have a true ministry at the Pilates Club, correct?
I do.
Right?
Yes.
But ministry is in many ways.
Oh, yes. So getting people to feel better about themselves, getting people to get into their bodies and understand what's going on in their bodies and how Pilates works from the inside out and all of that, that's all God. It's God in a sense where a lot of people have been through trauma. A lot of people have been through a lot of different experiences. So they have a lot of baggage, and a lot of that baggage causes them to become stagnant. So a lot of people are watching TV and watching their phones and all of this stuff. But getting them to go within, because think about it. If a person is laying on the reformer, because we're using reformer, so the person is laying down on the reformer. Now, they have no awareness of where they are in space when they first come. Because I'm standing up, I'm walking back and forth, and I'm telling them, put your arms overhead, but they're laying down, and the shoulder blocks are there, so they can't put their arms overhead. So getting them to understand where they are in space, getting them to understand that even though people have different ways of learning, some people learn audibly, some people have to feel, they're tactile, and then other people learn by hearing. So as I'm walking back and forth, everybody in the class has to eventually come to a point where they can hear what I'm saying, it registers in their mind, it registers in their body, and then they can perform that thing. So it's just Pilates is just a wonderful thing. And if I can do that while giving them a piece of me, because I try to make the classes informative, challenging, and I try to give a part of myself. Like I'm always telling jokes and stuff like that. Like there's this ongoing joke that I used to date Chris Brown, even though he's like 30 years younger than me. So that was so I have this, that's the type of rapport I have with the people that are coming in there. So it's not as serious as some people can make Pilates. So I want people to be able to receive not only the rehabilitation, but the challenge. I want them to think about what's going on in their bodies and be able to hear, register, and do, right? And to be able to do that while staying safe. So it's my responsibility. If I'm going to get these people to do all this stuff, I have to be able to keep them safe. So I have to be able to verbalize what it is that they need. Even though may have their own way of learning, I have to be able to get them to do that and understand their bodies. So, like I said, those little wins. So that understanding, they get to the point where and you can see when it clicks, because somebody will be like, oh, and I'm like, you did it, right? So yeah, so those little things, and subbing for people, I get to go into, because I have my same people that come to my classes all the time, and then subbing for people, getting to know other people, and getting them to understand something different about their bodies. So that sedentary lifestyle, you have to keep yourself moving, right? So think about somebody sitting down all the time, right? You sit down when we're sitting down now. You sit down when you're driving, eating, reading. You're always seated. So you're training the front of your body to remain short. So you don't have to extend all the way in the front body. And you're training your glutes and hamstrings that all they have to do is get you from seated to standing up. So we're getting people to understand that your body needs a little bit more than that. And as we go through these exercises, they understand about range of motion. They understand about what's going on in their core. It's just a wonderful experience. I can't really put it into words, but it's an experience that you have to experience it to understand. It's just like when you learn how to read and you're reading to understand the words. K-at. And when you finally get it, cat, it kind of clicks. And so it's the same thing. And I just love that. I love the fact that people, all ages, I have people that are in their 70s that are taking the classes, and they're keeping up with these young people. So it's helping people with their quality of life. So some people are like, oh, I can't get my feet into the straps. And then eventually they're helping somebody else to get their feet in the straps. So you see, it's just like a domino effect. And I hope and pray that I'm able to impart on them the things that I've been able to feel in my own body, so that they can feel that same thing and be more confident within themselves too.
I receive it. What's your purpose?
I believe that my purpose is to serve people, to reach people, to when I started out, my company name was Relevant Pilates, and I don't even want to use that anymore. But I want to meet people where they are. And where you are you may be broken down. You haven't done anything in a long time, and you've been in a car accident, and you kind of been, they put you on those oxycodone, and you succumb to that. But helping to get people to understand themselves and be able to move forward from where they are, but in a positive manner. So that's what I'm hoping that my purpose is, to get people from where they are to where they really need to be and understand themselves internally so that they can move past that to wherever it is that they're supposed to be.
What are you passionate about?
My grandkids.
Okay.
So my 2-year-old granddaughter, she's getting ready to be 3 in February, and she stays with us 5 days a week. So just seeing her grow up and me being able to help her with who she is to become. And then I have my 8-year-old granddaughter, and she lives with us full time. So my daughter lives with me, and then her daughter lives with me. And I'm able to see my daughter was really sensitive. And I was always the one, I was out, I'm going to dance, and, oh, Mom, you're embarrassing me, and, all that. So I'm seeing how, because all that crying and stuff, there's something about crying that just triggers me. I don't want to hear it. The conversation has to stop when the tears start rolling. So I'm seeing my daughter deal with her daughter that has the same personality that she has, November the 1st and November the 12th. So they're the exact same person. But my daughter, just seeing her and how she, the patience that she has with my granddaughter, and seeing how she can take her from being in this emotional state and getting her to come out of that. I wasn't able to do that when my daughter was younger. So I've learned a lot from my daughter as to how I can be a better person by just watching her and my granddaughter.
Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
Why do you think crying upsets you? It doesn't resonate with you. It makes. Do you connect it to some kind of weakness, or what do you think it is?
When I was younger, remember, I was the older daughter, but I was the one that stayed home all the time because I wasn't one to be under my mother all the time. And I used to cry all the time. I cried about everything. And my mother used to always say, you don't need to cry about that. Like, everything is not like the end of the world. Like, I used to cry about everything. And I think in order for me to not succumb to the crying all the time was to become angry. So if I'm angry, tears aren't going to come out. You know what I mean? So if I can get angry enough, then they won't see that weakness in me because I've always thought of it as that was a weakness. And my daughter and my granddaughter, they're sensitive. And they do so well together. Like, my daughter does so well with her. And I always tell her, like, you are really good with her. Like, the crying, I just need to, get yourself together. I can't deal with it. That's just not me. But my daughter, she can really work with her. And I'm saying to myself, like, man, I could have done that for my daughter.
But Teresa, let me ask you. So somewhere, how young were you when you were constantly crying?
Elementary school, high school. I would watch a movie and cry.
Okay.
Somebody would say something and I would cry. A baby would be born. I cried for everything that happened. It was like I was so emotional that it was a happy cry, sad cry, anything. If I saw a cake, out, so I had to like force myself to get out of that. And I think that anger helped me to not be that person that would be so sensitive and cry all the time.
Which would you rather be now, angry or sensitive?
I think I would rather be sensitive because it's like I have a little jealousy of how my daughter and my granddaughter, their relationship is just so wonderful because my daughter can relate to her. And see, I couldn't relate. I remember all the crying and what it took for me to stop crying, and I just can't deal with it. So I wish that I could have been a little bit more softer when it came to my daughter's sensitivity.
So, and I've learned this because I cry at movies. Like, I'm mushy. I like I'm her. I'll definitely be crying. And so, it was three of us growing up. Just to give you an example, it was three of us growing up. Me, my cousin Tawana, and my cousin in Florida, Val. And so they're about 4 years older than me, and I'm an only child. And I would cry about stuff, right? I'm a Scorpio. I cry, right?
And my daughter and my granddaughter are Scorpios.
So, and they would give me a hard time about it. And people would say, that's being weak. And I really didn't care what they thought, because this is so funny. All the people who call me weak, they would all come for me for stuff. They needed my strength for the things that...
Exactly.
Because they were afraid to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable is your greatest superpower. And most people don't realize that. They think crying means you're weak. And so what I'm hearing you say is, my mom would say, why you cry for everything? And you're so young, you're processing that as that's a bad thing. I shouldn't be crying. So I got to figure out how to stop this crying. But actually, it's your superpower. And the reason why you feel like envious of looking at your granddaughter, I was like, why can't I?
Why can't I feel?
Why can't I feel? Like I can. You've just shut it down, but you can. It's not a big deal. You really. What I've realized that crying is a cleansing thing. Also, it's very.
See,
cleansing.
I understand that. I can understand that now. It's just that when I think back, like, man, I could have.
Yeah, it's that childhood thing. It's that inner child thing that's killing you. It's like that little girl in you saying, you better not cry because they say you're weak.
Whatever happened, you can't cry. You can't cry. So use your words. You can't cry. And I'm trying to. I don't know the words, but the tears are coming. They're telling you something.
Yeah, I get it now. No, but they didn't punk me like that. I decided I'm gonna cry and get this off of me.
Right.
So, but yeah, I get that totally. So my last question is, what is prosperity to you? And I have one more after that.
Okay. Waking up and knowing that I have a role in making sure that other people are okay means prosperity to me. So again, back to that serving other people, not what I can get, but what can I do? And that's kind of my, I prosper in that.
I received that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share?
I don't think so.
You sure?
Yeah. Are you gonna ask me if I have a question for you?
Yes, I am. Do you have it?
Okay.
Everybody likes that part. Why do they like that? Yes. Okay. Do you have a question for me?
I do. So what characteristic about your personality can you do without?
Is this something that you was thinking about for like 20 years?
No, I've been thinking about this. Like, what can I ask her? Like, I'm going to ask her about herself.
Without in my personality. So here it is. I don't think there's any characteristic that I could do without. I think what I could do better is if there are things that I think I could be better at, I need to hone those things
Yes.
and become the best version of myself. Because we're all unique individuals. And whatever those things are, we often focus on the negative things in us and thinking that, but those things are really our greatest teacher.
Yes.
So if we embrace everything and be grateful for everything we have, we can become the best version of ourselves. So there's nothing in my personality that I'm looking for to change. I'm always looking, how can I be better? And that's my only goal, is to be the best version of myself. And that's all we're required to do. Like, this is the school that God gave us to learn to be the best version of ourselves, so we can be the closest to be like Him, right?
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, that's all I'm trying to do every day, is to be the best version of myself. And with those gifts, to hone those gifts, that I can be an example for others. And maybe others can learn something from me by just what I do. So,
Okay. So you have taught me a lot. In this
I have.
short period of time.
okay.
One thing that I notice about your personality is you always look for the positive. Like, even in the question I just asked you, you look for the positive in that. And that's something that I've been pondering over after having conversations with you. And you'll say, well, why you don't, we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. So I love that about you.
Thank you.
And that has me, pondering at home, like, I need to start focusing on the positive in me and the positive in others. And that's what I've learned from you.
It's important to definitely try and be positive. If you're not being positive, see, you draw to you what you are. And I don't want no.
I know.
I don't want no. I swear, I just don't. I have more years behind me than I do in front of me. And at the end of the day,
Who says?
Well, no, I assume I do. Okay, I really don't know, right? But what I would like to know is that going forward, that I'm really, really living life the way I'm supposed to live it, right? I don't want to be on my deathbed saying, I wish I should have, could have.
Yes.
I just don't want to do it. You know what I mean? I want to be like, and when I transition to go to be with the Lord, I want Him to say, job well done.
Yes.
It might have taken you a minute, Tanya,
Yes.
but job well done.
Yes. And my daughter, I learned so much from my daughter, with her patience and her kindness and all that she does with my granddaughter. So I'm learning a lot of things from her as well, and how to stay calm in certain instances where I would kind of like, not to say blow my top, but certain things that would trigger me. Like, she can kind of mold a situation to end up being a more positive outcome. So I'm still learning too.
So I want you to think about something. Because there are no accidents, and God is so, oh God, He's amazing. So your daughter has your genes, right? And what you're really seeing is yourself and all the things that you have held in.
Aww.
And that's why it touches you so much.
Yes.
Because
I received
really
that.
you want to be her. You want to be like that, but
Yes.
you really are, right?
Yeah.
But you, at a young age, something happened and it made you feel that you couldn't be that. And that's all it is.
That is
you
so
already have it.
good.
I'm telling you.
Okay, Scorpio. Okay, Scorpio. Okay, Miss Sensitive. Oh, that's so good, Tanya.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, honest to God, it's true. I mean, we all are our parents, right? Our ancestors, right?
That is so good, Tanya.
I'm just
Yes.
yeah. So
thank you.
No more questions, right?
No more questions.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. It's been a joy.
Thank you so much.
I am
Thank you
so
much.
grateful.
Aw.
I hope that everyone who listened to this understood how important it is to just do whatever it is you're feeling in the moment. And whatever path you decide to take, it's okay. because ultimately you're going to end up right where you need to be. Again, that's another session of Entrepreneur. Thanks for watching.